Hi there all. Just want to say a big hello from myself and from everyone here at the Student Room. To everyone who's watching us both live on the Student Room and also on YouTube. Hey, so welcome. This is the fifth of the TSR Answers series. And today's event will all be on graduate careers and how we can help you get ahead. So through lots of on the site, you have told us that one of the things that's affecting you, our amazing community right now, is uncertainty around the future. And to help, we've reached out to some amazing specialists who I'll introduce you to shortly. And they can help give you some answers and help support you through that process. What we'll also be doing is, if you do have any questions as we go through this, please do add them into the thread that you're mostly in. If you're on YouTube, please jump across onto the Student Room and get them into the thread. And I'll try and ask any of those live questions as we go. But yeah, without further ado, I'll pass you on to our amazing panel to introduce ourselves. So should we start with yourself, Aasha?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Aasha Tikoo. I am one of the graduate recruitment managers at Clifford Chance. I've been at the firm for coming on to 9 years, believe it or not. And I've over the course of those 9 years, I've pretty much sat in every seat from assistant through to actually managing the team. And after returning from maternity with my second child, I actually took a bit of a steer towards the marketing. So which I'd always looked after anyway, so it just sort of became a sort of natural next step of progression for me. So yeah, I look after a whole host of different things, so I'm very well placed to sort of advise on how we approach recruitment and how things are looking for us in the season ahead. So yeah, excited to speak to many of you.
Amazing, thanks Aasha. And yourself, Ross?
Hi, thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. My name is Ross Parsons. I lead the early talent recruitment at Johnson & Johnson for the UK and Ireland. So I've been with the business for coming up to a year in July, but I've kind of worked in the early talent recruitment space probably for the last 5 or 6 years. So I've worked for and with various organizations across kind of lots of different sectors, and a little while ago was a graduate myself, searching for graduate roles too. So yeah, really keen to kind of be here today to try and hopefully support and share some advice and insights and perspectives with you guys during, what I appreciate is quite an uncertain and strange time for all of us. So yeah, really pleased to be here today.
Awesome, thanks Ross. And Jack?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So my name's Jack Hendon and I work for MyKindaFuture. I'm a recruitment manager. I appreciate we're not quite as big a name as Clifford Chance and Johnson & Johnson, but we are a specialist HR tech company. And part of what we do, and particularly my team, what we do is work with a pretty wide range of employers to place talent, particularly early talent, so graduates and apprentices and everything in between, into a diverse range of roles across those companies. And I think, as Ross sort of said, as you can probably sort of tell from my baby face and lack of his amazing beard, I'm not too far off the graduate range myself. So
Making you feel very old, Jack.
Sorry, Aasha. But it's something I'm very passionate about, is being able to support people around this sort of age group in, as Ross said, really difficult times. And having done a lot of research into the effects of the 2008 crash and everything after came with that for early talent. I think it's a really privileged position the three of us and everybody in this industry can be in to offer any advice we can. So glad to be here.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks, Jack. And yeah, I'm Paul. I'm the sales director here at the Student Room. So if anyone has any questions into how to stumble through a career path, then yeah. I graduated in 2006 and I wasn't fortunate enough actually to go into a graduate scheme. I had a 2-2 back in the days when a 2-2 was basically a sentence. And but yeah, but I think there's so much more stuff that you can do now, and it's a great time to sort of be in higher education and sort of be coming out of higher education as well, despite all the challenges. Awesome. So I'm going to go on to questions from the community. As I said, to any of those who are currently watching, if you do have any of the questions, please do add them into the thread and I'll bring them to the panel. Cool. So to kick off, we have a question from Charlotte Webb. And this is, what are the top skills, other than the obvious academic qualifications, that you look for in an applicant? And Aasha, should we kick off with yourself?
Yeah, this is a question I get asked a lot. I think law is a funny one because a lot of people are surprised to hear that we actually recruit 50% non-law candidates against the other 50% of law candidates. So that alone should tell you that the breadth and range of skills and qualities that we're looking for are by no means isolated to those candidates that know a lot about the law or are studying the law. I think over the years, what I've come to realise in the role is that we are looking for the people who are authentically engaged with what we do. And obviously with law, that's quite niche. And, so that makes it in some ways slightly easier to find those people, because we do corporate law, it's a very specific type of law. And so we're looking for those people who are or have been sort of cultivating and nurturing an interest in that subject matter. So there's curiosity, intelligence, and an authentic engagement with what we do. And then aside from that, it's people who are, again, as lawyers, but specifically, our jobs are very, very client focused. It's all about customer service. It's all about placing the client at the center of what you do. And so people will come to me and say, oh, my work experience amasses to, 5 years in my local store. And, I've got very little legal and I've got other bits of business. I'm sure I'm going to be not selected for your process. And I'd say absolutely not, because working in your local store for 5 years shows that you're completely customer centric. And if you've got examples of that to share with us, then that's a very strong quality and skill, along with a whole host of other qualities that would bring. But understanding, that the job is very much about people, having good people skills. I mean, I don't want to go over the same common stuff that everybody has: team skills, being able to, work on your own, work in a team. That's all a given. But I think the people that we end up attracting are the ones that are very curious and very driven to service, our clients' needs, and that's tied into an interest in business and corporate law.
Yeah, interesting. Before I go on to Ross and Jack for the similar question, there's a question further on that kind of links to your point around soft skills, which is how can people better demonstrate those soft skills within their CVs, or possibly if they get to video interview stage?
I think it's really important to be your authentic self. I mean, I know that sounds really, easy for me to say sat here, but, as we all know, hopefully most of us on the panel, if you're not doing a job that you enjoy, you're never going to do it well. So we ask on our application form, we give you a 600 word paragraph to talk about something that has meant something to you, an achievement or an experience that has changed the way you do things or the way that you look at things. And we found that actually that's been one of the most powerful ways of getting to understand people before they come in and meet us, because what it's encouraging people to do is to steer away from the normal sort of corporate experience, and I've worked in a team and I've stood by the photocopier and I've done what I've needed to do, and it allows us to really get more of a feel for the authenticity of that person, because our assessment processes are testing all those other things, yes. So they're designed to do that. So I think it's about picking experiences that you think best relay your strengths and your qualities in an authentic setting or way where you've almost surprised yourself with your ability to deal with something, but all the while being mindful as to how that set of skills, strengths and qualities align themselves to working in a sort of corporate business environment. But it's okay for those things to be entirely separate. And I think that's the skill in writing that 600 piece really well. And it's, being honest about the experiences you've had and being able to draw out that skill set from each of those.
Yeah, love it, and completely agree on the authenticity side of things. It's a career's unsustainable without that love.
Yeah.
And Ross, for yourself, do you see anything different with what you look for those top skills outside of the academic side of things?
So no, I would definitely echo the point Aasha made around authenticity. And for us, I think it's a lot about a candidate showing their motivation and drive to work for Johnson & Johnson or whoever the company is, and for that role. Kind of for J&J, we're a very large, complex organization. So the candidates that often stand out are the ones that you can kind of pick out in their application answers or in their CV that they've really done their research and have tailored it to the organization. And, they pick out things that most applicants maybe wouldn't have mentioned because they hadn't done that additional level of research. So I think that motivation and drive for the business you're applying to and for the role that you're applying to is really important. And kind of more and more I'm seeing with, our roles, but also other organizations I've worked with over the last few years, is that there is a big focus on, trying to look for individuals who are comfortable to coming in and driving their own kind of career and development. A lot of these kind of grad opportunities and placement roles are set up to, potentially give you a lot of opportunity and responsibility to potentially fast track your career, but it's the individuals who perform the best in that scenario are the ones that come in and really drive that themselves. So trying to show that ownership of your own development is really good as well.
And what you see in a CV or an interview, this sort of really kind of like highlights that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's people who, and I'm sure we'll kind of talk a bit later about ways of showcasing skills during this current scenario where perhaps there aren't opportunities to work in industry or over the summer. But I think people who show that they've done that learning off their own back and can kind of demonstrate that, as Aasha said, it doesn't need to be, if you're applying to a law role, I've worked in a law firm for 3 months. It could be I've worked in this completely different role, but these are the applicable skills that I've got, and this is where I went above and beyond or out of my way to develop my skills in this particular area, or to do some learning off my own back, maybe listen to a particular podcast or something. Just those kind of little bits that you pick out in an application that show, yeah, that person's got a real passion for developing in this area. Awesome.
Thanks for that, Ross. And a slight pivot for yourself, Jack. There's a question here from Matt Mars, which I think would be perfect for. The question is, how early would you start looking for work experience and at what levels? And would activities such as volunteering abroad help when it comes to, actually this is for both universities and also for jobs, but I guess particularly in the career side of things?
Yeah, I think so. Two parts there. One, how early should you be looking? And I'm of the opinion that students don't know enough that they should be looking. I think there are far too many students that are sat in their third year of uni, May, June starts to roll around, and they don't realize that actually the majority of graduate schemes are recruited for in that kind of autumn, early spring period, and they've almost missed the boat, and then they end up having to take a year off even if they didn't want to. And I think there's sort of an industry-wide and both within the university space problem there where we're not doing enough to signpost young people to these opportunities. For work experience in particular, I think for me, work experience means different things to different people. Some people might think of work experience as a set, an internship in summer or a 2-week work experience placement. And those things are relatively seasonal. So if it's going to happen in summer, chances are that firm's going to be recruiting for it, like I just said, in that sort of late autumn, early springtime. But the word work experience to me means a lot more than just a set program. And I think that's something that a lot of graduates or sort of students currently at university miss out on is, actually you were just saying, people that have done work in an entirely different set, even just having a job at Tesco's for 2 years, that I think people don't necessarily realize, and a lot of people underplay the valuable skills and experiences they've had on those. MyKindaFuture anyway, and I guess sort of more so in the industry, we are seeing a bit of a move from competency questions, so give me an example of a time you've done this, to strengths-based questions, which are more around, they're less reliant on your experience, which I think is a good thing for the industry anyway. But when you are being asked about your experience, a lot of people will undervalue sports they've done. Volunteering trips abroad are amazing. The majority of people don't do that. So even if you've not necessarily done it in, for example, a legal capacity and you're looking for a legal role, having gone to, I don't know, Barbados and done a bit of volunteering with people there is absolutely brilliant. And I think people should be willing to think outside of their sector. If you know what you want to do, obviously finding experience in that sector is brilliant. But I think there's a lot to be said for just working and just doing things and thinking about, okay, what skills am I developing here? Is it people skills? Is it teamwork? All the kind of generic skills that companies typically look for. There are much more ways to get those than by having an internship.
Yeah, brilliant. I guess sort of linked to that, then there's another question here from Ennot. If we go back to you, Aasha, so they've asked, outside of internships, what should we be putting on our CVs? Everything from student leadership positions, committee roles, volunteering, and how impactful is this for their chances?
Yeah, I think, students nowadays are just doing so much stuff. Their fingers are in so many pies. I think we're moving into an age where, just as Jack said, the importance of the internship, or the physical internship, for the rest of this year, as we all know, is pretty much over. Now it's about seeking out other resources to help upskill yourself and prepare yourself for the career that you're going to let yourself into. I think, for us, again, I can really only speak for Clifford Chance in this sense that, the emphasis for us at the moment is very much on those first year schemes. So over the last few years, we've seen that those have been the schemes that have ended up feeding most heavily into our training contract pipeline. So there is a lot. We are looking for the students who are grasping opportunity from the minute they hit campus in their first year. And I think, as Jack said, there are a lot of people who don't know that those opportunities are there, and that actually a lot of the recruiting starts so early. So I think, if what I'm saying is, we are looking for, those first years who are starting uni, going to start applying to us in that sort of August time at the end of their first year for a place on our Spark scheme. You won't have had all that much uni experience up to that point. So partly this is the reason why we rely heavily on your authentic experiences to tell us about you. And of course, your positions of leadership or any sort of social enterprise you've done, anything in your community, anything where you've had to sort of take responsibility and control of your experience is going to be really viewed on really well by a recruiter like us. So I think what people could be doing is really, especially in this age where there is now so many resources. I mean, on the legal front, the number of firms now doing legal internships is amazing. Therefore, that democratization of knowledge and content is everywhere at the moment. So we need to be seeing that people are seizing those opportunities, really looking out for what this new milk round is going to look like. For us, we're going to have a whole host of new content available on our website for people who are interested in a career in law that they can just dip into and access from August onwards. We're launching our own global virtual internship as well from August. So it's now, I think, obviously we're at a time where people can't be going out and getting physical experience. We need to see that they have utilised and looked for and been proactive in the space of actually upskilling themselves and taking hold of every resource that's available to them to do.
Awesome. I think there's a couple of things actually both you and Jack have mentioned that sort of tie into other questions from the community, but one of them is particularly around virtual schemes at the moment. So there's one here from Catus Starbright, which is, how will internships or vacation schemes that have gone virtual, so those that we have to go through still a full recruitment and selection process, be viewed, in your view, by graduate employers moving forward? If we start with you, Ross, are you currently doing any virtual schemes, and what's your view?
So we're running full virtual summer internships in the US, and for our UK kind of placement students, they actually start on Monday. We've got 80 or so starting on Monday. They will start virtually, and then we'll transition at some point back into the office, because we bring in a lot of 12-month placement students. But I mean, it's difficult to tell kind of how we will necessarily view those internships for the next recruitment cycle, but I can only, I think the way the current situation is impacted, the ways of working is actually, we will look upon those internships in a virtual setting in pretty much the same way we would have looked at those which took place in the office, is my kind of gut feel. I don't think anybody would be disadvantaged by having done those internships virtually rather than in person.
And is there anything you've learned from your colleagues in the US that can help you from Monday?
Make sure the IT comes and it's there and it's working and it's ready. That's the main learning. And I think one of the other key things is that we will, it's a new experience for all of us, both on our side and the student side. So they've been really good at kind of taking regular kind of surveys and getting a kind of regular pulse of how the students are finding it, how the managers are finding it, so we can kind of be really agile in trying to improve that experience as it goes on, because we're not going to nail it first time. It's a very complex process for everybody. So I think, it'd be great kind of as of Monday, we've got lots of really kind of engaging virtual sessions going on, but also we'll be kind of keeping regular track of how people are feeling about the experience, so we can kind of continue to build on that.
Yeah, amazing. That's great to hear. And yourself, Aasha, are you doing anything virtually at the moment, so virtual internships or?
Yeah, so we haven't cancelled anything. Thankfully, we've been in a position to move everything onto virtual platforms. And yeah, I mean, it's all about the tech, isn't it? The fact that our entire firm transitioned to working from home within a week, shows that there's been a heavy reliance on tech since this whole thing started. So we're in a really sort of lucky position, if you like, in that we've got the right platforms already set up and ready to go, and therefore we've been able to transition quite successfully onto virtual. But just as Ross said, it's going to be a first for all of us, so fingers crossed it all goes swimmingly.
Yeah. And then to the second part of that question around sort of how the virtual internships will be viewed kind of going forward, do you think they'll be sort of seen as kind of much of a muchness? It's not really.
It's hard to say. We're really optimistic. I mean, again, I'm slightly older than the others on the panel, so I've been through this internship, thing several times, and over the years, what I've taken away from it is that students just want to learn. Okay, they want to learn, they want to absorb. Obviously, a physical internship has other benefits in that you get to see the office, you get to physically engage with the people. But I think what we've got planned for this new season with all this new virtual content, it will be quick. You'll be able to see once it goes live that the variety of content and the breadth of exposure and engagement opportunities across all of those virtual sessions, in some ways, lots of ways, completely blow a virtual VAC scheme out of the water, because we are now able to bring lots of our international lawyers into one room, share work from across different continents, and lots of live streaming of meetings and what people are discussing. So we're in an age of lots of new content, exciting stuff, which we need to see how that goes over this season. But we're really optimistic that it might well start to play quite a significant role in how we run our internships moving forward, but it's hard to say at this point for definite.
With yourself, Jack, are you seeing anything on a more sort of wider sector level?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I would say, so at we're not specifically doing a massive amount of work with digital internships. We are doing a fair bit with digital work experience at a sort of school age level, that's I think sixth form. But I think for me, I'm almost going to echo what Ross and Aasha have just said, in that it's definitely an unknown into sort of how these actually go, and do students come away with it still feeling like they have had a really valuable experience. I think that's going to be a really big thing. Like Ash said, I'm relatively optimistic that particularly the bigger firms who have already had to have quite a sharp transition to moving such a huge workforce to tech, I think they'll be in a very good position to deliver really, really good programs, and working with suppliers that are sort of specialized in this kind of thing is an option for a lot of employers, and we're seeing a lot of that. In terms of how it's viewed, I think one thing that I might add is that to me, and I think one thing to remember is, regardless of whether or not your internship ended up being digital or face-to-face, you still got an internship at, for example, Johnson & Johnson or Clifford Chance. And I guess I won't use any direct competitors on this call, but if we do take the big four, if I'm a Deloitte recruiter and I'm looking at a student and I can see that they got through one of the other big four, they got through KPMG's recruitment process, because they're not easy recruitment processes. And even, regardless of the actual experience you necessarily ended up having, to be able to say, I beat out, you know, thousands of other people to get this internship, that, I mean, that alone shows to a potential employer the skills that you clearly must have. And that's the kind of thing that I think is quite likely to get you through those CV stages and those things, is, you know, whether or not your experience ends up being as valuable as it could have been, unfortunately. And well, I mean, I guess it remains to be seen. Just by virtue of having that opportunity, you've already got a leg up over a lot of competitors that weren't able to I guess get to the stage you did. So sure. It's a big if in terms of how it turns out, but I still think anybody that's got an internship should not feel as though they're being shafted almost. I think you should still be very proud of what you've got, and you can carry that forward regardless of how it ends up, I guess, pulling off.
I just want to add to that, Jack. That is an excellent point, and I think, especially considering, you know, those people who have applied, gone through all the rings, and got their space. The thing I'd like to say to those people is, you know, you're as much an investment to us as we are to you, and therefore the same level of resource and meticulous planning and ensuring that the content allows you to walk away from what you wanted to walk away from the vaccine. All of that is still very much at the top of our priority. So yeah, the experience, you know, should be amazing, but you definitely have earned it, and it's something that you should definitely talk about and sing about if you do have one. Brilliant.
And the next one, it's from Lewis31M, and I think we just got Lewis's age and gender, which is nice. Is linked to a point that both Aasha, yourself, and Jack have made around probably the information gap that exists for young people to find out sort of when they should actually be applying for all these positions. So this question is, which websites are the best places to look for graduate jobs? And then particularly for yourself, Jack, what does MyKindaFuture do to help underrepresented unemployed people get into work? Do they work with individuals or just businesses? So probably best to start with yourself, Jack.
Yeah, the second point, I think that person's probably been on our website, which is very corporate focused. So I don't blame them, but no, we do. So we do work to support businesses with their talent needs, but ultimately the people we're supporting into the workforce and the labour market are people, you know, young people of all ages, really. And the way we do have a massive focus on underrepresented groups, and I guess from a recruitment perspective, specifically, a large part of what we do is we have a lot more touch points with candidates in a recruitment process than typical suppliers would. It's usually a 20-minute phone call before your assessment centre where we prep you fully. Same before a telephone interview. We have, I guess, a lot more involvement with each candidate than some recruiters might. And what that allows us to do is really draw out you. And I think, like Ash was talking about at the start, is we want an authentic story. We want you. We don't massively get a lot out off of which university you went to, or what did you get, a first or a 2-1. We want to talk to you and support people, and we do a lot of work as well, supporting people that haven't maybe done as well as they thought they did or wanted to. So we offer full feedback after several stages of the process, and if candidates come in and they quite clearly haven't necessarily led the life that has allowed them to learn how to format a CV, for example, or you know, their email etiquette's not particularly professional, and it's just clear that they've not had that guidance and they've just never been given an opportunity to learn some of the things that some people do get the chance to learn. You know, I think one of my colleagues has probably rewritten / supported people in redoing their CVs about 30 times in the last couple of weeks with an apprenticeship program we're doing. So we offer a lot of sort of, I guess, bespoke support. And then on a wider MyKindaFuture level, we have a tech platform called Connector that we actually have with Clifford Chance. They have a platform, that is a tool purposely designed to support, I guess, engaging content for people of underrepresented groups and young people, and it's to help with employability and things like that.
That's awesome. And from your perspective, Ross, are there any resources or websites you'd recommend for, I guess, particularly focus on the underrepresented groups, but in general, for helping to fill that information gap?
Yeah, I think one of the resources that is kind of constantly slightly underrated is the University Careers Services, who have kind of a really good tie-in with loads of organizations, and quite often there are quite a large number of websites which post about graduate jobs and placements and things. If you just kind of search grad jobs in Google, you'll probably get a pretty good list on the first page. But I think what you can get from a university careers service is a bit more personalized and a bit more support. They can kind of support with those soft skills and application pieces as well. But also a lot of kind of work done in organizations is about building relationships with different universities as well. So they might quite often have almost a direct line into kind of the recruiters, and quite often will have access to almost hot off the press what the upcoming jobs may be, and can kind of feed those straight into. So as somebody myself who at university certainly didn't take enough time to kind of engage with the careers service, and I think since working in this early talent recruitment space, they're a really great resource. And I'd certainly urge students to try and reach out either to their whatever school it is that they're a part of, their career service, or the more general career service as well.
Amazing. And Aasha, anything else that you could add to that to advise?
Yeah, I think if you're looking at law specifically, obviously trade press, we're pretty much in all the big hard-hitting trade press that's out there. So from a legal perspective, it will be the Chambers, it will be Lex 100, it will be Target Jobs, which isn't actually just legal. Anything Target Jobs is a great place to start. They've got so many different products out there. But their UK 300 publication, which is distributed through their career service, and actually this year that will be really important, that you connect with your career services and you allow them to distribute among the student audience all the publications they have, because a lot of organisations are going to be ensuring that their media and their marketing is on point. Also I think there's been quite a big rise in behavioural targeting as well. So I think if you see any particular ads and things popping up in your feeds, probably give it, if it's relevant to you, then definitely give it a look. But yeah, I just, as the others have said, just typing it into Google is a great start. Your career service is an excellent start, but also familiarising yourself with trade press and thinking about the organisations that you like. Get really familiar with their careers websites. A lot of organisations will have a corporate site, and then sometimes their graduate site will sit separately. That's what we do at Clifford Chance. So make sure that you are sort of looking for the organisation followed by graduates, so that you can look at what they're doing, and also look at all the social media channels, follow them. All job opportunities for us get announced on there. That it should be quite easy to find in this day and age.
Amazing. Just as a slight segue, prior to this role, my former job was head of programmatic, and I used to do all behavioural targeting stuff. To explain that to my grandparents was a challenge. So it's like, when you go on Amazon, you just get followed forever. It's like, I make that happen. Like, cool, thanks, Paul. Thanks for ruining the internet. Like, got your back. Anyway, that aside, so one of the many, so this question, unfortunately, I don't have the name of who put this in, but Jack, you mentioned this earlier, actually, and it's probably one of the myths of grad recruitment, and this is, will I only be able to get a grad job if I get a first in my degree? And I think that's something that's mentioned a lot on the site. So yeah, Aasha, if we stick with yourself, what would be your response there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to, I'd never not say anything that I don't want, wouldn't stand by entirely. And that is, in order to be a lawyer, you have to have academic strength, because the content of what you're dealing with is quite intense. It's a lot of reading, a lot of sifting through content. So a strong academic record is all we ask for. It definitely doesn't have to be a first. And whatever that record has been, we just need to see consistency and a good level of achievement, because along with that, there's that whole host of other qualities and strengths that we're looking for in the application. So it's absolutely not about getting a first. It's about being balanced, well-rounded, being able to explain, if there are any dips in your academic record, as long as you're happy talk about that and be open about why that may have happened. And if you can see a saw in it again, that's even better. But, you know, we're open to sort of conversation around the academics. But I just think anyone that's approaching a career in a corporate space or a commercial space needs to bear in mind that a good academic record is going to help because of just by the nature of the work that you're doing. You know, it's important, but it definitely doesn't have to be a first.
Awesome. And Ross, Johnson & Johnson?
Yeah, so again, definitely doesn't have to be a first. I think, you know, for me, both at J&J and other organizations I've worked with, it's, you know, the degree grade and that academic piece is, you know, it's a data point, but you are more than just your academics. You are all those other kind of different experiences that we've sort of talked about and touched upon up to now. As Aasha said, you know, if there is something that you are worried about, I guess, being perceived in the wrong way through kind of, you know, detailing your academics on a CV or on an application form, you know, as long as you're happy to share the background behind that, then I think, you know, most organizations I've worked with, you know, tend to take that kind of thing into account. But yeah, certainly, again, doesn't kind of need to be a first. There's not many organizations I've worked with where they kind of set the benchmark at that level.
Yeah, good. I want one of those like big myth busted kind of stamps now. Awesome. So this is a question. I'll start with yourself, Jack. It's from Pilbo Baggins. What advice do you have for preparing for a video interview?
Great. Yeah, we do a lot of work around this, and we supported a really large client with their apprenticeships and their video interviews for the last 6 or 7 months, and purely prepping candidates for that part of the assessment center, or part of the assessment process, I guess. And there's a lot of advice, and there's a lot of content online that gives sort of tips and tricks, and there are guides out there that you can go and look up on and read into if you find them helpful. The number one thing that we've always tried to push through, that the fact is, probably I would say 1% of people find them comfortable. People don't massively. I guess it's worth pointing out that there are 2 types of video interview, and I don't know specifically which one we're talking about here, but there's the sort of the automated. It gives you a question, you record yourself making an answer, and people do not like that. We've surveyed students and they do not like that. And then I guess a Skype interview over video interview, that's probably actually becoming, we know it's becoming the norm. That is probably the norm for the foreseeable future, and I think that's definitely probably much more in people's comfort zones. But with both of them, I guess the advice, the biggest piece of advice for me is remembering that treat it as if you're just sat across the person. So if obviously with Skype it is a bit easier, you can look somebody in the eye, you can it is just a conversation, and that's a much more natural thing. But with the automated video interviews, where you are effectively, you know, we always say make eye contact with your camera, which sounds very odd, but it's true. You want to be coming across as natural as you can, and like with anything in a recruitment process, it comes with practice. You know, the more video interviews that you do, the more you will find them comfortable and the better you will be at them. But I think it's just remembering that people don't massively find them particularly comfortable, and you're not alone in that. So just try and overcome those nerves or that anxiety around doing it, and just give it your best shot at being quite confident. Try and be quite natural. Things like hand movements, absolutely fine. Don't feel like you have to sit there like a robot staring and just repeating, you know, reading off a script. It's worth with the company you're applying for, depending on the level of interaction they have with you at this point. But if there is somebody you can contact, or if they tell you that you're allowed to have notes, we advise students that they should have notes. And we always say that as long as you're not sat there reading a script, nobody's going to mark you down for looking at notes. If anything, it shows that you're prepared. That's sort of our line on it. And then I guess just some more minor tips, things like just try and be a bit conscious of your background. I appreciate, and this is a thing where, you know, socioeconomic stuff does come into it. And if you don't live in an environment where you can get a lot of peace and quiet, or you have particularly, you know, if you can't just sit with a wall behind you, which some people can't, then maybe see if you can seek out a friend, or if your school or university has a space where you can do that. But yeah, try and just be considerate of your background, what you're wearing. Some companies will give you, I guess, a brief on what to wear. I don't know that that's particularly common for a video interview. I haven't seen that anyway, but it's usually a smart idea to not do it in your pajamas. And then, yeah, just be conscious of things like noise. Make sure you're ready, sit down, have a drink. don't rush it is a really big thing. Some companies give deadlines and they're usually quite generous. I've only ever seen 7 days as a deadline to actually get your automated video interview submitted. To me, I would almost be saying, do it on your 6th or 7th day. Don't feel like, okay, this has come through, I've got to rush it through now. Take the time to prepare like you would for any interview. Make your notes, bullet point them, maybe do a couple practice runs with a family member or just at a camera, something like that. And go into it as prepared as you would a face-to-face interview. Because chances are anyway, after your video interview, you're going to be asked to do a face-to-face interview. So if you treat it as the same thing, you've just got a practice run, really.
Fair enough. That's awesome advice. Thanks for that, Jack. And Ross, anything to add to that? I guess also, are you involved in the interview process yourself?
Yes, so yeah, I support kind of right up to the assessment centre as part of my role. So yeah, most of if you apply for a role at J&J, it's probably in the UK and Ireland, it will be myself or one other colleague who watches that video interview. So
how do you find it from the other side?
It's much easier being on my side. I'll be completely transparent, but I think, you know, we are mindful of, you know, it's not the most comfortable experience in kind of technology for everybody. I guess, you know, the reason it has come in more over the last, 4 or 5 years is just because of the, to schedule, 5,000 telephone interviews to take place live takes a long time, essentially. Whereas the beauty of the pre-recorded video interview is you can, take your time, do it when you want, as you want, on any device you want, where you want, and we can review it in the same way. But yeah, I'd really echo Jack's point around it is something that takes a bit of getting used to. So, use the opportunity to practice. Lots of the video interviews that you get invited to will have a practice option there, which usually you can do as many times as you like. But even just, Googling, interview questions, record yourself on your phone or tablet or laptop, whatever it may be, answering them and watching it back, as kind of awkward and cringeworthy as that might sound, it will help. It will help you kind of develop your technique, kind of practice that eye contact piece Jack was mentioning. And what we do at J&J actually is we give people a few attempts to answer the question as well. So you'll see the question, have some time to prepare a response, making notes and reading back from them, as Jack mentioned, as long as you're not kind of staring straight down at them is absolutely fine. And actually, we're conscious that your dog might suddenly start barking in the middle of the take and that might throw you off. So we give, I think they get 3 attempts to kind of answer each question as well. So we're quite kind of generous in that respect. So I think, as Jack mentioned, just kind of try to relax, try to understand that there's nothing that we as recruiters probably haven't seen go wrong in a video interview. So, just try and relax. We're conscious. We're not expecting everybody to kind of be all singing, all dancing in those video interviews. It's really just a way of us kind of getting to know a bit more about you. So I think, again, that authenticity piece comes in there.
Awesome. And Aasha, any final pro tips from yourself?
Well, we're not, the lateral team are doing video interviews and we're not actually having any more interviews until probably January time. So yeah, I mean, I echo everything, I'm totally behind everything that Ross and Jack have said. We used to have video interviews as part of our process, but we've stopped them. But obviously, dependent on what January looks like, we might have to reintroduce them. Yeah, try and be as relaxed as possible. That is difficult. I mean, for lawyers particularly, it's really hard because, you don't have, that's not part of the job to be camera ready. We have to sort of look behind. We're actually more interested in what's coming out of your mouth rather than how you are performing on the camera. So, never overlook the importance of just good, decent interview preparation, being clear on what you want to say. And actually a video interview, yeah, like I think Jack said, you can have your notes there, you can be really prepared and take the time to do that. But yeah, the emphasis is on what you say, not how you behave on the camera.
Brilliant. Okay, so we have a question here from anonymous number 9, and it is: would you consider mature students, this person in their early 40s, applying for your jobs who are changing career and have a degree from a top bracket university, such as Oxford, Imperial, LSE, but for grad roles in particular? So graduate, but a career changer. Aasha, should we stick with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can put forward a sort of compelling reason as to why you're looking to change, why you've now got from doing what you've been doing for X number of years to now, a really deep, meaningful, keen interest in what we do, then absolutely. And I've got many examples of people that have joined the firm that have come from a whole host of different backgrounds, from scientists to zoologists to ex-SAS army people, sort of a whole host of those sorts of individuals in the business at the moment. So yes, we do. We just, you just need to be, again, authentic and convincing in your reasons, and be able to back it all up in the same way that we ask any other applicant to.
Amazing. Also, I'm sure those ex-SAS people shouldn't be telling you that. We'll gloss over. And Ross, with Johnson & Johnson would be a similar position?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as Aasha said, it's just about, if you're kind of any kind of that career change piece, just kind of being open and upfront about it and kind of justifying the rationale. There are, certainly myself as well, come across lots of individuals who have worked in one career for 10, 15, 20 years and then gone back to retrain as something else at university. And then, absolutely the kind of, I guess, that early talent grad job level would be, the right kind of level of experience for them. So I think usually there's kind of no initial questions around that. I think it's something that, if you're in that situation, be prepared, perhaps in the latter stage of the process, to talk in a bit more detail about your motivations for that change, just because I think it will be a natural question that probably comes up. But yeah, certainly no kind of concerns around taking somebody with that kind of background at all.
Awesome. So this is a question about choosing degrees. This is from Etienne 26. And the question is, how would you go about choosing a degree when you are unsure about what career path you actually want to go into? So if you go all the way back to being a 17-year-old and try to choose what you're going to do next, but you're not sure what that end goal is, how do you choose? Jack, should we start with yourself?
I think, and I imagine we're going to have somewhat similar answers here, because I think being in this sector and supporting people into the world of work the way we do, you should pick something that you enjoy doing. And I know that's whether or not you think it's going to land you a career. My advice would be, please don't go to university because you're going to do a degree, and that degree is going to get you a job. Because I think the somewhat blunt truth of it is that your degree won't get you a job anymore. Your degree and all the things you do around it, and like we've been speaking about today, your ability to talk about why you want this role and any experience you've got, things like that will be what decides you get a job. So, I mean, unless if you have an idea, if you think you want to be, if you want to be a lawyer, like Aasha was saying, it's 50-50 of non-law to law. And I don't know, Aasha, is there, within that non-law sector, is there a trend, or is it literally anything?
It's literally anything, and particularly, with law, there are so many different sort of offshoots happening. You've got tech really evolving. You've got, all the different sectors that law covers. Anyone with any sort of skill set in some shape or form will probably come into contact with that sector or that specialism, because law touches everything. So yeah, it's a very broad range.
I guess the bottom line for me is just think about the subjects you enjoyed doing at A level. Have a look, because there are a lot of subjects that are available at university that you don't do at A level. There's a lot of new things. There are a lot of quite niche ones, particularly when you're looking at universities that aren't necessarily Russell Group. There are a lot of perhaps lesser known degrees that you might find absolutely fascinating. So I think just take the time to find something where you read through it and you think that's interesting, and then you go to an open day or attend an online sort of taster session. And I think there will be a moment where you think, you know what, if I had to do that for 3 years, I would have fun doing it. And I think that's what you should be looking for, not what career path it might lead you now.
Personally, I went super niche. I did international relations and strategic studies, which if I had any kind of like career output at the end of that thinking, probably would confuse me a little bit more. Yeah, Ross, Aasha, anything else to add to that?
I think I just echo Jack's point around, this is something you've got to kind of work at and study for at least 3 years probably. So choosing something which you aren't interested in and don't enjoy is probably not kind of the best approach. And I was in exactly this situation when I was that age, I had no idea what I wanted to do longer term. So I just kind of picked a degree in the subject that I'd enjoyed most at school. I'm now in a career that has kind of nothing to do necessarily directly with the subject that I studied at university, but you can, regardless of what course you do, there are lots of things to be kind of gained from the approaches you take in the work that you do on that course, the methodologies you use. There are so many applicable skills that you can get out of it. I think obviously, unless you're looking for if you've got a really fixed idea of I want to be an electronics engineer, then that's great, and you can go and pick a particular degree in that subject. But if you're not quite sure, I'd say just try and focus on choosing something, as Jack said, that that you enjoy and you're passionate about and interested in.
Awesome. Great. We have another question here, which is on diversity. So it's, how do your companies make sure that your recruitment is fair for all people from different backgrounds? And Aasha, will you kick off with yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So this has been something that we've tried to build into our recruitment model for a long time, and we were one of the first to introduce CV blind interviews. So straight off the bat, we were into no interviewer sees any CV before they actually conduct an interview. So automatically, it's a level playing field. In addition to that, we introduced, again, one of the first law firms to introduce contextual data into our recruiting methods. So we are now able to access mounds of data about every applicant that gives us a bit more insight into their social background, their school performance, and it just gives us a lot more visibility when we're benchmarking different candidates against each other. So that has been incredibly amazing. And then, of course, we partner with so many different organisations that allow us access to talent that would either self-select out for whatever reason, or just general widening access initiatives that we're involved with. Literally, we'd be here for an hour if I listed them all, but some of the big ones are Rare Recruitment. We've done a lot with the Social Mobility Foundation. We run our own access a program called Prime, which we've been running now for nearly 10 years. And we partner up with a lot of universities and their initiatives on campus. So diversity in our recruitment and in our workforce is, I think I can quite confidently say, is at the heart of what we do, and we have to ensure that is from the very outset implemented into our processes, and we do, and we're very proud of that. So.
Awesome. And since you started sort of putting some of those things in place, particularly CV blindness and whatnot, have you seen sort of a change in sort of, I guess, the makeup of Clifford Chance?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because you sort of you go with the times, and there was a big explosion about 5-6 years ago where everybody really realised they needed to shake up their system, and so from when that sort of cataclysmic moment happened, we've seen a great increase in the diversity of our candidates, and we're delighted with especially in the widening access space, that we're now welcoming people into the business who we know for sure, say 6 or 7 years ago, would have probably self-selected out for various reasons.
That's amazing to hear. It's really great. And yourself, Ross, at Johnson & Johnson?
Yeah, so I guess similar approach in some ways, in that we engage with kind of external parties who, I guess, support the access for more kind of diverse students kind of coming into and being aware of Johnson & Johnson as a whole. So in Ireland, for example, there's a big focus on women in STEM. We do a ton of work with kind of school children and colleges and local colleges as well. And one of the really key things that is kind of I've learned about kind of the approach J&J takes to kind of diversity is they are really kind of open and honest about it within the organization. Nobody within Johnson & Johnson is kind of saying, this is something that we've got nailed, that it's perfect. We are always doing there is always education available to everybody across the business. So unconscious bias training is pretty much rolled out regardless of whether you're involved in recruitment or not. Just people kind of working in their teams, being having an awareness and understanding of their own biases. Obviously, for those people who are supporting recruitment processes, that's essential, but it's something actually that we're trying to thread throughout the entire business as a whole. So we tried to make sure that we are, when we're assessing, we have diverse range of assessors, people from different backgrounds as well, because we know, there are more of those common experiences there. We don't kind of, focus on these particular high profile Russell Group universities where we know perhaps there are less diverse populations of students. So yeah, there's lots of different pieces, but I think one of the really important things is that we don't think we've fixed it, and it's a continuous process for us.
And Jack, anything from Mike and the crowd?
Yeah, I spoke a bit earlier about sort of what we do with the underrepresented talent groups and how we try and support them. But to add a little bit, I guess from a recruitment specific perspective, we recently with a client ran a blind process. So not seeing any sort of schools, trying to remove basically anything that could identify you as, whether it's a gender or an ethnicity or a socioeconomic status, and that was really successful. And then there's just like I sort of alluded to earlier, we've as a company, and we because we're a third party supplier, obviously I work with a range of companies, and often we are somewhat at the behest of their processes and their attitudes to things like diversity. But we do a lot of consultancy work in for example, suggesting changes to your interview system from a competency-based one to a strength-based one, just because fundamentally a competency-based interview relies on you having experience. And the sort of brutal truth of it is that there are a large sort of, there's a huge group of people and really brilliant, talented, smart people that just do not have an opportunity to get an internship, or to, when they're in school and work experience week rolls around in year 11, they don't have a vast sort of, I guess, network of family contacts where they can go and get a hookup at a big insurance firm down the road. Is that a lot of people just don't have that. And so relying particularly at an early talent level on experience, we feel is somewhat counterintuitive to the, I guess, mission of opening up your talent pool to underrepresented groups. So a strengths-based approach is much more about what do you enjoy doing? What would you give us as your top 3 strengths? It allows you to basically get across, as we started off this call by talking about that authentic side of you, in a much better way, which I think is really, really important for diversity.
Well, conscious of time, we've actually got 3 minutes left, and it's absolutely flown by. So the final question is, if we can sort of answer this one sort of quite quickly, which is, so it's from someone called Always Needs Advice, which is perfect for this forum. And it's, how did you get in the job you're in now? And how do you find your passion? Ross, should we go with you?
Yeah. So I guess keeping it brief, pretty much fell into it by accident. So as I kind of alluded to earlier, I did a degree in psychology, which was my favorite subject. I then came out of that degree, did a bit of traveling, wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And actually I started in a kind of a temp role for an organization that managed large volume grad recruitment for lots of other companies. And I just loved it. It wasn't kind of, I guess, that targeted kind of, I guess, bonuses kind of recruitment, but it was the opportunity to kind of engage with students who are really kind of, passionate about the work that they were trying to get into. And I've kind of just, I guess, progressed through there for kind of the last 5-6 years. And I've kind of literally fell into that role genuinely by accident. I got a call on the Friday to ask if I could start the role on the Monday. And I've kind of been doing early talent kind of since then, and have just kind of moved around different organizations and up the ladder. Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Aasha, yourself?
Yeah, believe it or not, I similar sort of story. I started off at a recruitment agency. I'd actually gone to look for a job, and then they offered me a job. And this is many years ago. And I was a student in London, needing to pay rent. Got a job with a recruitment agency, but it was one of the best things I ever did, because it allowed me exposure to a whole host of different industries, and I got to sort of really see and feel what these different organisations are like. And then the Clifford Chance role came up as a temp role. I walked into the office. I instantly connected with the people that were interviewing me. started as a temp assistant, and 9 years later here we are. So and what's been great about my role, I just need to add, is that I did an English degree, and I really thought when I accepted the job at Clifford Chance, I was like, well, that's it, did English, I'm not really going to need that degree. And over the course of the years, my interest in sort of marketing and writing and anything to do with sort of presenting at the firm and representing the firm, I've been able to sort of weave aspects of that into my career now, having been here for this long. And so yeah, it was a surprise, but now it feels like the right place. So
awesome. Yeah. And yourself, Jack?
Yeah, very quick. I'm definitely one of the lucky ones. I fell in love with the first job I got, basically. MyKindaFuture are local to me in Cheltenham, and knowing what they do for young people in the space, I basically asked if I could have some work experience because I didn't have any. So I started as a 2-week temp in September 2018. And now I have some of our largest recruitment clients, so I've just been stuck here. But I'm definitely one of the lucky ones. But I would really push the message to people, particularly of my age group, to not be afraid of asking for things. I think there is a bit of an anxiety around putting yourself out there for opportunities, and you may very well not get the first one you want, and that ends up being what you do. But worst case scenario is you get a no, and I think push for it.
Awesome. By the way, my heart genuinely misses the Jolly Brewster in Cheltenham. So much. The best ciders ever had.
You're not wrong.
Anyway, yeah, thank you so much, guys, and thanks all for everyone watching on the Student Room and also on YouTube. Basically, yeah, watch this space for features on upcoming TSR talks, and also there'll be a poll which we'll be creating shortly, asking you to give us feedback on how we can support you more, what kind of talks you'd like to see as this series goes on. So yeah, just once more, thanks so much, panel. Aasha, Ross, Jack, absolute pleasure, and see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.